Here I have the early shift at the liquor store. Look how I'm watching the Liverpool game. Well, this guy did have it sideways for a second. Now it's upright. This is Facebook. I guess it's a Chinese guy. He's got it on Facebook Live for us. Got his phone on it or something. It's not bad. I could see some stuff. I don't really know who's who, but nothing's going on. Oh, now it paused. So that was what it was like for me trying to watch the game live. In the end, I wasn't able to, so I read a minute-by-minute description that basically described Liverpool pouring down on Burnley's goal for the entire second half and not getting through. So far this season in the league, we've had 2 points dropped away against Watford from a bad set-piece goal in injury time, and 3 points dropped to Man City after a red card. Both understandable somewhat, but now we've come full circle and we're right back to square one from the last 2 seasons. Can't get through a team that sits all the way back. Dropping points to quote-unquote teams that we shouldn't be dropping points against. The lesser teams. I hate when people use that term, lesser teams, because really, Burnley is not a bad team. Liverpool is better, which is why Burnley felt the need to play so defensively. Look, as Liverpool fans, we would all love it if teams would want to come out and have some confidence in themselves to score, open up the field so the fans can get an entertaining game. But it's not going to happen a lot of the time. Everyone knows how dynamic this Liverpool team can be if you give them a chance to get out on the break. So we can't blame Burnley for playing that way. Jose Mourinho brought the term parking the bus into the limelight because he was just so outright in using the tactic. And with teams that really didn't have to be doing it, like Mourinho's Chelsea teams weren't bottom of the table sides that had to desperately defend as their only chance to win. So that was frustrating to see a team like that play that way. But the reality is, it's not Mourinho's strategy. It's a perfectly legit strategy that Liverpool have come across plenty of times and will continue to. So, all that being said, if Liverpool are to have aspirations of winning the league, it can't be such a chore to score against these type of teams. There are ways to score against a packed box. The reality is that just because Liverpool made 100 chances, that doesn't mean that they played well or that they were all the best chances that they could have made. I didn't watch the match live, but I did get a hold of the copy of the tape. I took a little bit of time to analyze it. I know Liverpool have a cup tie today at Leicester City, but I'm only taking the time to focus on Premier League and Champions League matches here on this show, at least for now. So here are my findings. 2 points. First, I felt there was not enough interchange between the front five. So Coutinho is back in the lineup. He's in the midfield now, moved away from his customary spot up front on the left. But that doesn't matter. Let's take a trip back to last season when Liverpool were dominating and up there at the top of the table through December. They had a healthy Adam Lallana in the midfield, and he was getting up there with the forwards and interchanging with them, getting into positions to score. They were all being really creative with each other. The front four, Fabinho and Coutinho, could drop into midfield to cover. Mane could take the spot up top, or he could interchange on the left or the right. But what I saw on Saturday was the front three interchanging just fine, but Coutinho and Milner didn't really get into the box aggressively. I felt Coutinho didn't play too well. It's understandable. He hasn't been training with the team. He didn't look like he was gelling with the guys. The team lacked a bit of chemistry. And Coutinho at times looked confused about where to go, overlapping with other teammates in runs, or kind of just staying too far back and not making an impact from his new midfield position. Now, my second point, because there was no interchange from the midfielders into the front line, what we got was very predictable passes trying to thread it through to the forwards, basically most of the time. They didn't get between the lines. There was no coordination, no attempts to string more than one pass together, no creativity. Here's a play that I felt exemplified how Liverpool played, chasing the go-ahead goal. There was a massive amount of chances, so I could be here all day if I talk about them all. So I'll just pick one example here. This is in the 42nd minute, game 1-1. Coutinho somehow gets the ball through 2 lines of defense to Sturridge, who tries to take it by himself. Tough chance. I know it's Sturridge and he thinks he can do it. Sometimes he used to be able to squeeze a goal like that in by himself, but we don't want him doing that anymore. Don't want to be relying on one player to play hero ball. They need to do this as a team now. Here's an example of a team just to show you what I mean. This is how it's done. I just chose literally a random Barcelona game from last year because they use our formation and they come across packed defenses a lot too. I know this is Barca, but just to make my point, this is how it's done. This is from May 27th last year. Alaves is getting back to defend desperately. Lionel Messi is in the midfield here. Ivan Rakitic runs in from midfield to cover his space up front. Messi finds Neymar, who comes back to receive the ball between the lines. Neymar could have made a run forward and hoped Messi found him, but that would have been a very difficult play to score from there. So instead, they try to get it in between the lines. Sure, there's only a little tight bit of space to work with, but that's what you got to do. It's important to get into that space because now you only have one line of defense in front of you and they're going to be at your mercy. It's much easier to get through one line of defenders than two. Here, Messi just puts it in, but there were other runs available. Same with Sturridge here. If he takes a moment to cut the ball back, he has Firmino here. He could try a give and go. Maybe Firmino could just shoot it from there. Whatever. Probably better than him trying to run past two defenders and shoot it in from that angle. There were a few occasions also, though, where Liverpool did use that tight little space Burnley were giving them, and they did pretty well. Here's one in the 36th minute where Coutinho and Sturridge linked up. They've played together for a long time now, so they have a pretty good understanding of each other. Sturridge receives the pass in tight space. Coutinho does make himself available for a return pass, but Sturridge chooses to go for the cross to Salah. Still, it caused a major disruptance and resulted in a pretty solid chance. So it wasn't all bad. I just think they need to focus more on every possession to run a solid play and reduce the wastefulness. If this were every play and Burnley still kept them out, then you just got to tip your hat to that. But I feel Liverpool could have done better. You see, these are the plays that never get shown when the networks break down the games. All they show are the goals, and it's like the rest of the game was a black hole where nothing happened. But there's usually a lot more to the story. The goal they scored, in this case, Emre Can did very well to recognize that the Burnley defender was very keen to not let Milner get the ball between the lines. A little too aggressive there, and he left an open area of space for Mohamed Salah to receive this pass. Great skill to bring the ball down, an incredible finish to put it away quickly. In this case, they did get between the lines. There was only one line of defense in front of him, which makes it a lot easier than when there's two, and Salah felt confident enough that he could finish. But he had nice options also if he wanted to lay it off, but he took care of it himself. That was one nice play in the game. Developed from pretty far back, some open space to work with, direct pass to get between the lines. Liverpool should really be using their passing skill, pace, coordination, and guile to cut through defenses, not relying on desperate one-on-one play. Sturridge was very guilty of that on Saturday. Coutinho too. They have the players and the skill to carve teams up. They just need to get the teamwork going into tight space. I know what I'm asking for takes a lot of work rate, but that's what it takes. You can't be lazy. Got to get some movement and shake these opponents off, put the ball in the net, get the lead, and change the complexion of the game so that the field can open up. One last thing. Let's talk about the defense. When you look at the Burnley possession previous to the one where they scored, you could see the goal coming from a mile away. It may have been a lack of respect for Burnley, but Liverpool left their back four completely hung out to dry. There's no defensive shape here whatsoever. Just a back line that is they're being trusted way too much here. No other way to say it. You can't leave those back four by themselves. They're obviously not the greatest defenders in the world. They need help. If you bring the lines closer, you make it much harder for Burnley or anyone to score. Can and Milner at least should be back helping, but you can see here that they're already on the break even though they don't have possession. Klavan is by himself and it's like he's almost not even there. I was watching the Sevilla game at Lucky Baldwin's pub with my friend Stephen Kushian from Pacific Plate Brewery. And the night before I said on this show that Lovren is better than Klavan, so he's got to play. Then Lovren made that stupid mistake against Sevilla, and Steve told me, is Lovren really better than Klavan? They're both playing really awful right now, which is why they need help from the midfielders. They don't need 5 forward. 4 is enough if there's movement there. Then 2 can help the defense. Maybe if it were a stronger team, they would have showed some more respect. But in this one, Liverpool literally didn't have a defensive shape, and they gave up a relatively easy goal. By the way, if Lovren and Klavan keep struggling, I might start a campaign to give Milner a chance at center back. Yeah, James Milner. It's a little radical, but I think he's determined enough to pull it off. He would at least show more passion. He did pretty decent work at left back last year. I think it could work. Anyway, that is all for this edition of Walk On. Thanks for watching. Liverpool played Leicester City today in an early round League Cup match. Crashed out of the tournament. We'll talk about that later. And they'll also play them again on Saturday in the Premier League. Liverpool now sit 8th, not in terrible shape in comparison to Spurs and Arsenal, but got to get it rolling now a little bit. Let's see what happens. Cheers.